I believe that traditional 2D fighting games are one of Android's biggest weaknesses. There just aren't many truly good ones out there. The best we've got is Mortal Kombat Mobile, which to be honest can be pretty frustrating. Some might even call it bad, but today I've got a few fighting games that are actually worth checking out. So drop a like and let's get into it. Let's start with a game that honestly is pretty confusing, but also really good. We're talking about Fighting X Layer. To be completely honest with you, this game feels unfinished and I'm not exactly sure why. It only has 3 characters and 1 stage, which looks like a default map. There's a PC version of the game that's actually really good, and it seems like they tried to bring it to Android but never finished it. And that's the biggest issue here, because when it comes to gameplay, this is easily one of the best fighting games on Android. It plays really well, the controls feel great, and the characters are solid. It probably could have been the best if they had actually finished it. But since they didn't, we'll have to leave it in last place, which is a real shame. After a long time, we finally got what might be the best fighting game ever released on Android, Samurai Showdown, fully distributed by Netflix. But wait. Where is the game? Unfortunately, this is yet another great game that Android managed to lose. I have no idea what happened, but they removed it from the Play Store and even from Netflix's library. When it was available, I got the chance to try it, and I can say without a doubt that this was the best fighting game ever made for mobile. The graphics were stunning, the controls felt smooth, and the character animations were top-notch, and that's coming from someone who isn't even a big Samurai Showdown fan. Luckily, you can still find ways to download it online, but it's a bit trickier now. Still, if you love fighting games, I honestly have never seen a better one on Android than this. There's a hidden gem on the Play Store produced by XD that's a really fun 2D fighting game. Let's talk about Flash Party. You've probably heard of Super Smash Bros, right? Well, this game basically emulates that gameplay style, just like several others on Android. The key difference here is that it was actually made for Android, unlike Brawlhalla for example. The gameplay is super easy to pick up and you'll get the hang of it even just by going through the tutorial. There are a bunch of cool characters, each with their own unique moves in battle, which makes it really exciting to play and a solid fighting game overall. However, I have to mention that the game isn't what it used to be. There are fewer players now, but even so, it's still a great 2D online fighting game if you're looking to beat some noobs online. A lot of people probably don't even know this game exists, but it really surprised me. It's actually pretty good. Let's talk about Final Fighter. This game is a bit confusing. It's a classic 2D fighting game, but it mixes things up in some unexpected ways. For example, it does have an online mode for playing with other people, but most of the game is actually played offline through a mission mode. The game also mixes up the controls. A classic fighting game would have standard buttons, but this one has fewer buttons. It's not like Mortal Kombat where you can just press forward and get the move you want, you know? It has a decent difficulty level when it comes to fighting NPCs. The matches are usually 3 versus 3 and they can take a while. Despite mixing a lot of things up, it still delivers a solid fighting game experience. This one I'm sure you don't know about. It's hidden deep in the Play Store. Let's talk about Dual Souls.
First conflict. Destiny awaits. Take this.
You know that cliche fighting game from an old school console? Well, this game is almost that, and I can tell you with certainty that it's exactly what makes it stand out. The game doesn't really care about delivering great graphics. The characters are cartoony and weird, but believe it or not, it works, and it works really well. You've got lots of buttons and character powers to play with, and the difficulty with the NPCs is no joke. It's pretty challenging. This is the kind of game that does the simple 2D fighter thing and does it really well. It's amazing, and I highly recommend Dual Souls. I'll admit I get a little confused by this game, and you'll see why in a second. Let's talk about Ultimate Fighting. At first, I actually thought this was the same game as Final Fighter, and they do look pretty similar. Maybe even the same game with a few changes. The gameplay is pretty much identical, the characters are the same, and even the game system I praised earlier feels similar. So what sets them apart? The first thing I noticed is that this one is strictly 1 versus 1, whereas Final Fighter is 3 versus 3. Also, Ultimate Fighting feels a bit more offline with some RPG elements thrown in, like character progression and other features. So in short, it's the same game but with different systems, which is honestly kind of cool. Final Fighter is more of that classic 2D fighter, while Ultimate Fighting feels more like an RPG with missions and other extra content. The only game on our list that's really grown within Android is almost like a series. Let's talk about Shadow Fight. A long time ago, this game only had the silhouettes of characters, and even then, it was still pretty interesting. That's what helped it become the epic game it is today. Right now, we're at Shadow Fight Arena or Shadow Fight 4, which are both strictly online with that PvP action we all love. However, if you're more of an offline player, I highly recommend the older versions like Shadow Fight 2. The game is super complete and there's a lot of strategy involved, but your skill definitely counts in the game as well. With a bunch of cool characters, it's probably the most popular fighting game on Android, especially when it comes to online play. So if you're looking to get into a fighting game, this one is without a doubt the best. I'm always amazed at how many people don't know there's an official Street Fighter game on Android from Capcom. Let's talk about Street Fighter Ifo.
And the battle begins! Fight!
Street Fighter 4 is one of the most iconic fighting games in the series, originally released back in 2008. Even though the game keeps its classic 2D gameplay, it incorporates 3D models for the characters and stages. This blend of 2D and 3D was an innovation at the time. One thing that completely slipped my mind is how complete games used to be. I jumped into Street Fighter 4 and the game already gave me all the characters and everything in full. It's such a treat. The game also has a cool feature that's pretty rare now, the ability to battle with a friend via Bluetooth. Honestly, I haven't seen that much on Android these days. Here's another game hidden deep in the Play Store, my friend, and it seems this series is pretty well known. Let's talk about BLAZBLUE RR. Unfortunately, the game hasn't been updated, which means only older versions will appear on Android, which is honestly a shame. The game features many classic characters from the BLAZBLUE series like Ragna, Jin, Noel, Rachel, and others, each with their unique attacks and fighting styles which fans of the series will recognize. BLAZBLUE RR offers an engaging story that expands the BLAZBLUE universe. Like other games in the franchise, the plot is filled with complexity and twists. What's interesting about this game is that it manages to beat both a 2D beat-em-up and a 2D fighting game. So you'll face some weak NPCs on your way, but eventually you'll take on the bigger boss. I thought that was a pretty cool aspect. And the title for the worst name in a fighting game goes to Super Dragon Punch Force 3. Yes, my friend, all of that. This game was released in 2024, very quietly, almost unnoticed. Despite being a visually impressive game, as you can see, there are two ways to play the game, online and offline. You can play PvP or dive into the story mode with the characters you see here. Graphically, I'd say it's one of the best on this list. However, the gameplay is a bit clunky. Even though there are lots of buttons and different commands, I'm not sure how the game is doing player-wise, but it's a shame because it's really well made and definitely deserved more recognition, especially since it's an online PvP game. Without a doubt, the simplest game on our list, lighter and with fewer features, but trust me, it's really good. Let's talk about 8-bit fighters. There are two versions of this game, 8-bit fighter and 8-bit fighter versus. One is a beat 'em up, which is actually pretty fun, and the other is a 2D fighting game that's quite interesting. How do I say this game is really good, even though it seems like something made by a kid? I think the best part about fighting games is that it really doesn't matter much about the graphics or all that if the gameplay is solid, and that's exactly what this simple game has. It's surprisingly addictive and simple, and that's something hard to pull off, you know? This might look like a meme game, but trust me, it's really fun and can get pretty exciting. Let's talk about Bloody Bastards. Bloody Bastards is a medieval fighting game based on physics, where you control a warrior using medieval weapons to defeat enemies in 1 versus 1 battles. The big difference with this game is its ragdoll mechanics, which make the movements clumsy and chaotic, but at the same time they are strategic and challenging. You control the character's arms separately using your thumbs on the screen, allowing for independent attacks and defenses with each hand. The character's movements are physics-based, making the fights hilarious and unpredictable as the impact of the blows directly influences the opponent's balance. It's really fun and stands out as a unique 2D fighting game on our list. Currently, the game I enjoy the most in terms of Android fighting games because it's that classic fighting game. Let's talk about VITA Fighters. It's a straightforward game with various interesting characters and 1 versus 1 two-dimensional combat that's tough. There are no super combos or anything to help you out. The characters are inspired by fighters from different media, including references to Dragon Ball, Naruto, Street Fighter, Tekken, and King of Fighters. There are even characters that resemble iconic fighters like Ryu, Goku, and even Saitama. The game uses a low-poly art style that gives the characters and environments a unique, stylized look, creating a distinct visual identity. The game also features an ending that's reminiscent of Marvel vs. Capcom, and at the end you face off against a titan from the anime. Man, I love this game. I have to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of this game, but it's undeniable that it's of great quality and really well made. Let's talk about Skullgirls. The game has hand-drawn graphics reminiscent of animations from the 1920s and 1930s. The characters are very stylized and expressive, each with its own story and motivation. One thing I didn't know is that the versions are different. The Skullgirls on PC is more of a standard fighting game, while the mobile version mixes RPG elements like character evolution among many other things. The game has simple buttons, and it's ideal for those of you who don't want to suffer too much in battles, especially offline. Let's finish the list with one of the best when it comes to online group play. It's a great game. Let's talk about Smash Legends. One thing I really love about this game is that it's fast. The matches last a maximum of 3 minutes no matter what game mode you're playing. The big highlight here is the characters and their completely different playstyles, from characters that shoot from a distance to others that can turn invisible and appear behind you. The game is challenging even though it's online, and it can keep you entertained for a long time despite being simple and quick. If you enjoy brawler style fighting games like Super Smash Bros. But with fast matches and accessible online gameplay, Smash Legends is a great choice. Alright guys, that's it for our list of 2D fighting games on Android that are kind of hidden in the Play Store but are real gems for fans of this genre. If you've played any of these, let me know in the comments what you think, and if not, give them a try and come back to tell me which one was your favorite. If you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next game recommendations. Catch you in the next one, and happy fighting!